Agatha Ventura, she, her. I call the Human Rights and Equity Commission today, May 28th, 2025, hybrid meeting to order at 4:30 p.m. For an equitable experience, please announce your name before commenting. This helps the blind, visually impaired, and those online know who is speaking when speakers' names do not appear. We will begin the roll call and encourage each to provide a self-description. Let's begin. Agatha Ventura, she, her, in a green button up with my hair back and some glasses, Latina woman, and brown hair. And I'll pass it over to Jackie Curry.
Jackie, present. They, she, mixed native woman, person, human, wearing black shirt and flannel button up.
Thank you. Scott Jones.
Scott Jones present. He, him, pronouns. I am a middle-aged white male with gray highlights and dark hair, and wearing a blue plaid shirt and glasses.
Thank you. Adrian McDougall. Here, Cameron Fisher.
Here.
Present.
Thank you. Carly Colgan.
I'm here. She, her. I am a white woman with a blue shirt and short dark hair and glasses.
Cristina Morales Moyano.
This is Cristina. I'm from Spain, so Hispanic woman, 5 feet tall, wearing green and sunglasses to avoid my hair to go in my face.
Eli Lowenstern.
Hello, Commissioner Eli Lowenstern. Pronouns are he, him. Tall white man with short black hair wearing a tie-dye long sleeve t-shirt.
Thank you. Jen Kovitz.
Present, Jen Kovitz, she, her. I am a middle-aged white lady with my hair pulled back, and I'm wearing a tank top turtleneck that is beige.
Thank you. Linda Hemer.
Pronoun she, her, white woman beyond middle-aged, wearing a pink shirt.
Yes. Vice Chair Linda Hemer. Thank you. We will make that update. Mario Anguiano.
Yes, I'm present. Brown Hispanic male with a fade haircut. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Hannon.
That is not present.
Thank you. Ruth Bernatico.
Commissioner Bernatico, a she, he, pronouns in order of preference. I'm a non-binary 47-year-old white male presenting person with brown hair, blue eyes, a black and gray beard, wearing green hat with some glasses today and a tan shirt with some rainbow stripe overalls.
Thank you. Kinsey Martin. Thank you. Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Next on the agenda, we'll move into our City of Bend land acknowledgement. May I have a volunteer to read?
I'll read.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Jen Kovitz. We would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land known as Bend, Oregon, north to the Columbia River, is the original homeland of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. The Confederated Tribes ceded this land in the Treaty of 1855 while retaining regular and customary hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. The Wanalama, Warm Springs, Wasco, and Northern Paiute people inhabited this area in certain seasonal times that clearly established their presence. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds. This trade route expanded the impact of commerce between tribal nations. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. It is our hope that guests continue to honor and care for this land.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'll look at our HREC business, starting with the agenda for May 28, 2025 today. We'll have our standing item with Council Liaison Perkins. Then have a roundtable that looks a little bit different today, where we'll discuss upcoming events and have a further discussion about our work structure. Then we'll go into public comment. And then have a vote around summer break, November and December meeting dates. Look into our old business and check in with our subcommittees, and then have our equity department updates with Andres before we adjourn. Next up is the standing item with HREC Council Liaison, Megan Perkins.
Hi, everyone, Megan Perkins, she, her, excuse me, allergies, blonde hair, blue eyes. Yes, very husky today, I think. Something's blooming. It's been a busy month. We did our budget deliberations, which over the course of about 10 hours over 2 nights. And came to a unanimous sort of decision on the budget to move it forward to our second meeting in June. There is a city councilor who read the entire 630-page budget twice and was not able to find anything that he did not get a sufficient answer to. So I'm going to call that a win. We at our last meeting, and I'm happy to talk about anything. Just interrupt me at any time. We talked a little bit about coming up with a committee that's really going to be trying to figure out how we can get more housing financing and what that might look like, who might be on it, and just sort of started that process because, as we all know, we are in a situation where we desperately need more funding to do the things that we need to do in our community. Particularly as we need to build, 30,000 new houses over the next 20 years. And I think the highlight for the meeting and the most impactful part of the meeting, and I will leave that up to those of you who are in the room because I know that a few of you were, was when we adopted the resolution that so many incredible people have worked so hard on, including our incredible equity team at the city. And that was definitely that was a really, I think, impactful moment for anyone that was in that room. And we talked a little bit more about our tiny TIF, which is our little areas of our community where we're trying to incentivize, housing at below 90%. And what else did we do that night? Did a lot of things that night. But coming up at the next meeting, we are going to hear from Visit Bend. They do every year. They talk about what their business plan is going to look like for the following year. We have to approve their work plan, they, for the first time, are going to be advertising the city of Bend in the summer, which they weren't doing before. But we desperately. Not desperately, but we very much need tourists in our community. Still, the money from tourism goes into our general fund, a good portion of it, 30% of it. And that goes and helps pay for our public safety. And so we want to make sure that we have a robust tourist season. And I think anyone who was around this last weekend can tell you that was a really good start to bringing in a lot of money into our community. We're also going to be doing a gun violence prevention proclamation and the proclamation for Pride Month. And we are going to be doing a public hearing about some development code amendments, I think, that are going to be related to ADUs and row houses to just help facilitate housing options. And we continue to talk about electrification a lot. And we're going to be specifically addressing our city fleet and electrification of that, which basically the resolution is going to say basically except for a very heavy vehicle or emergency vehicle, the entire fleet should be electric.
Yeah, there's a weight limit and a possible opportunity for exceptions or exemptions if there's something that just doesn't work operationally. But yeah, the drive is towards EVs in all circumstances where we can make it make sense.
Good.
question. Is the city eligible for tax incentives on purchases for those the same way an individual is?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I've seen that come up, so I'm doubtful.
Okay,
But I'm not certain,
okay.
but I'm doubtful.
I didn't know if Oregon had something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Lisa. Make sure and speak louder because it may be reading the captions, but I cannot hear it when.
Okay.
to-
Absolutely. Yep. I think in especially with the amazing letters that you have, it's important. I know some of you have heard this, but the point in time count has the analysis from this for 2025 has come out. And the community that they measure is 3 counties and Warm Springs. It did go up 17%. Ben's numbers include China Hat and Juniper Ridge. So obviously that'll look a little bit different, next year. And they did a really excellent job of counting of Juniper Ridge and China Hat this year because of just the increased engagement that we're having in those 2 areas. And so because of that, we did have a slight increase in the city of Bend's numbers, but over a 2-year period, it's flat. And so we are feeling really good about that we have managed to sort of flatten this dramatic increase that we've seen over the last few years. Just some statistics, 71% of the people in our region are single, but that means that 20% of them are families that are unhoused right now. We have really done another thing to brag about for the city of Bend is that a few years ago our unsheltered number far outweighed our sheltered number, and that has now we're about 50-50, so we've really evened out with that, which means that the shelter options that we are providing are making a difference. And any of the increase that we saw this year is 90+% of it is in sheltered homelessness, not unsheltered homelessness. So that is some other good news. But we've seen an 89% increase in our region over the last 5 years. And that is due to some of that is due to the fact that we're getting much better at counting people, relying on trusted relationships to do so. But it's also a sign that there's a lot more going on in our community and the larger community that we need to continue to address. But the one thing there's 2 things I really want to mention, and I know some of you have heard me say this before, but 71% of our region's homeless have been in this area for over 5 years. So when you hear that they are all coming in from California to do drugs, it's 71% have been here over 5 years. And the other number is we get numbers from the schools in Deschutes County, and we have about 800 kids that are in Deschutes County schools that are either on somebody's couch or in a shelter or or anywhere else. So those are the statistics that I want to kind of be thinking about as we go towards this next year. We very much need the state to help us with sustaining the work that we're doing right now. And we are very hopeful, but we need to continue to put all hands on deck so that we can make sure that we can sustain the shelter capacity that we have right now. Because when I think about one of our shelters closing, that could be incredibly detrimental to our community. So thank you for wanting to be involved in helping with this effort, and I'm happy to talk more about anything. Or I know China had happened since we last met, I believe, right? Yes, that was at the end of April. So happy to talk about that or whatever else you'd like to talk about. Yeah.
Do you have permit counts or numbers on permanent supportive housing units in production or like anything that is coming in terms of
There's
like?
not much coming. And not in Bend. I know that a really large amount of people from China Hat ended up filling up the one permanent supportive housing facility that we do have. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a pretty big number. But there's only 33, beds there, and we need, 200, 300. But it's the cost of, I mean, that development, as I'm sure you know, I mean, that took years and years and years and layers of funding to get that going. So I think we're in the situation of oh, good, Brooks here, perfect timing, of wanting to, to increase our, our capacity however we can, but we're just hoping that we don't have to close what we have now. Right? That's where we're at, and it's kind of scary. But we know what we need, but we can't provide it right now.
This is Commissioner Kovitz. There are 75 units coming online in Redmond through the Mountain View Community Development. But
Fully funded though?
it is, so they have the funding, the land development is starting. So they are waiting on funding to build phases 2 and 3, but they have
Yeah.
sufficient funding for land and phase 1, and the total count is 75,
Yeah.
but that's the only one that I know
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, and that'll obviously help significantly, but we know that Redmond is going through some major closures to people that are living in their forests, and we know that there are other things coming, so
Does our development code allow for SROs?
Yes.
yes.
Can you explain an SRO?
Single room,
Single room occupancy.
yeah, we do allow for that, but we haven't seen much use of that as far as I'm aware.
Please mention your name before you speak.
Sorry.
Agatha Ventura, her quick interjection. For anyone that has joined us, please feel free to join at the table as well, or you're also welcome to stay.
Well, thank you, as always, for what you do.
Thank you as well. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving into the round table, starting with upcoming events. Open to any highlights or recent events. Welcome to those as well.
This is Commissioner Kovitz, she, her. I participated on a higher education coordinating commission's work group to help study the workforce challenges in residential construction. And that report was delivered to the state legislature earlier this session. I was invited. I had real problems with the equity of how that report was conducted and voiced my concerns throughout, and I'll explain those in a minute. And I was asked to come before the Senate, the Oregon Senate Committee on Housing and Development next Wednesday on an information session about what's challenging workforce development in residential construction. I'm going to send you an email about this, Carly. And my concern with how the information was gathered is that there was no budget for this report. And so there were no job site visits. And so you can imagine if you're trying to study an industry that doesn't use technology, many of the workers are come from undocumented backgrounds. It can be challenging to study the real issues of an industry without actually showing up on the job site. And the way they collected information was a 90-minute phone interview, which of course just is not going to get the kind of participation from the folks in the industry. So I have let them know that I'm happy to come and speak on this information session, but I am going to be honest with our concerns about who was engaged for this study and who wasn't. And there was no budget for translation. So any of our Spanish first industry or Vietnamese speaking industry was also not engaged at all. I called Andreas this morning to ask if in sharing my perspective, and why in sharing my perspective, if I could name that I was a member of this commission, not speaking for this commission, but just say that to me, this is a lens that I'm bringing to many of the aspects of my work. And so he suggested that I bring that up here. Again, would not speak for this commission, would be speaking for myself and my role in the industry and my role specifically on the work group that was asked to help guide this study, but wanted to bring that here for discussion.
Agatha Ventura, she, her. Thank you. And I think that also invites me to take a second to say that part of the reason the roundtable will be a little longer today is to really encourage our participation in the meeting. And knowing that we're out in the community, I think it's super important to take a moment to highlight what we're doing, what we're involved with, what we can, and the leadership all got together and we'll have a deeper conversation as to what's working, what isn't, and how we move forward. But I think it's important for me to highlight that it's important to hear what you're involved with and what you would like us to be involved with, or what you need more participation around, and also what we want to invite the community to be involved with. So putting that in the space. So thank you. And I think on my personal perspective on that question, I think it brings a little bit of I think the word is ethos that I'm looking for, to sort of your feedback to them, to say that you are a part of the commission. I think, like you're saying, you're not speaking for the commission, and if we want to ever do something like we were doing with letters later on, that is something we can always bring up. But I don't think there's an issue with bragging about being a part of the commission and having that as substance behind your reasoning. But also open to that.
This is Commissioner Bernardico. I personally feel like it's probably not good practice, and the only reason I say that is because people who may not know what HREC is may see that levied on them as like some sort of a threat, right? Like I work with HREC and I feel like this is maybe not the greatest, use of resources for XYZ, right? I also, like, from a board position, from existing in a body that makes up more than just myself, I've always been like told never to stick my head above the parapet without like the general consensus. I don't know that that's the right answer, but that's like what I'm thinking. Yeah, I worry that if unchecked or if used in like the wrong context, it could absolutely come across as speaking for the board. And I don't know that that's always the wrong thing to do. There are times when I'm sure Agatha may be, disposed to actually speak for us in some context, something we've agreed on. But again, I don't even know if that's the wrong or right answer. That's just my perspective, my thought.
Yeah, this is Jen Kovitz. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Vice Chair Linda Heemer. My fellow commissioners, thank you for bringing it up. Commissioner Veronica, you bring up an excellent point, but I think the fact that in the context that you've described, again, everything that we do within our communities, professionally, personally, voluntarily, becomes part of our story and tells people what skills, what passions, what experience we have. And as long as we're honest that that is my position, I bring an equity lens to this role. I think that helps to set where you're coming from and to just identify however my position on this body or my position on a topic comes from me personally. And I think we might be able to come up as a subcommittee or to come up with a blurb of some sort where we can share as a group that we can identify ourselves as having this experience or having this appointment, this honor, and this duty, but then clarify that whatever position we're taking, whether it's work or another, or we're in the community, to say that we are speaking as an individual person.
This is Commissioner Colgan. I think also having participated in a number of information sessions and listened to a number of them, a lot of people follow that same practice where they will talk about and mention being a part of something, but not representing that in what they're doing in that moment. So I think that that's common practice, and a lot of times the elected officials are used to hearing that and used to hearing people say that and come with that perspective.
You have Commissioner Fisher online?
Hi, thanks. I echo Carly's point, and I'm perfectly fine with it. And I trust that everybody on this commission to use their sound judgment on how they present. And when you say as a member, you're saying as an individual. So I think it's perfectly fine.
Can I offer something? This is Ian Lighthizer, city attorney, white male, light brown hair, wearing a medium blue linen shirt today. The provisos that we typically give to people in this scenario are similar to what the two of you, Commissioner Colgan and Commissioner Hemer, have said, and Commissioner Fisher has echoed. I mean, it's good discussion, but what we will typically suggest to people is you are welcome to have a life outside of here. I hope most of you do. You are also welcome when you're speaking to people to say that this is one of the things you do. You volunteer on the City of Bend's Human Rights and Equity Commission. This is part of your resume, as it were. And if you're ever speaking or presenting, you are welcome and entitled to note that. It is, as has been suggested, pretty important to say, all that said, I'm here today speaking for myself. I'm not representing the City of Bend. I'm not representing the Human Rights and Equity Commission, but that's a relevant part of your experience, your perspective, what you do. So that's completely fine as long as you are clear about what hat you're wearing and really what hat you're not wearing when you're appearing. So you avoid, I think, the confusion that Commissioner Renatico mentioned can occur. Your authority as a member of ATREC is only as part of the body, and the body exercises that authority. And the authority the body that ATREC has is, and we may talk about this later, it's limited to making recommendations to the city council. So there are some sideboards about what you can do, but being really clear when you're appearing outside of here about in what capacity you're there is really important. And as long as you're doing that, there's no sort of structural, much less legal problem with doing that. But just be clear.
This is Commissioner Kovitz. I really appreciate everyone's input. This is personally important to me because I am I'm going to be the only member of a for-profit residential home builder in the space. And that is not, I don't think an equity lens is something that has been expected to be brought from that voice in the past. And it's really important that it is brought by me. And I think showing that members of that industry can also sit on commissions like this is important. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'd be happy to submit. I have to submit my talking points in advance, so I'd be happy to submit them to make sure that they are sufficient.
I mean, you all need to exercise your judgment on this. If you ever do have questions about how to make these things fit together, I'm happy to answer those questions and help. But yeah, you're not required to do that. But if it would be helpful to you, happy to.
Okay, yeah, I will use the language you've given to frame my one sentence bio
Right.
and appreciate it. I just really I've never done it before, but it's important. So thanks for suggesting it, Director Portella.
Any other feedback for Jen? Wonderful. Any other events that have recently happened or are coming up that you'd like to share?
This is Commissioner Linda Hemer. The Oregon Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Domestic and Sexual Violence has put a call out. Wednesday, June 5, National Day of Action. Many people will be meeting in Salem, but they've always also encouraged anyone to reach out at the federal level to representatives and senators to advocate to continue to fund and hopefully increased funding in support of services and prevention of domestic, intimate partner violence and sexual violence. That impacts federal defunding, not only impacts advocacy and services for those, but even training for police, which is my area of expertise to help in prevention and improved outcomes and accountability. So those who are interested could, I'm going to Salem, but it also could impact Saving Grace locally. And we know from a human rights and equity perspective, the research and evidence is clear that domestic violence and sexual violence disproportionately impacts women and trans increasingly, as well as the BIPOC members of our community. So just to raise that awareness. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bernatico. Ben's Pride is June 7th in Drake Park, just down the street. It's going to be, I think, much bigger than it was last year. And with like safety concerns and all of the recent developments that have prevented some other organizations from holding their events, there is a safety plan in place for this as well. I just wanted to add as well that I had the honor of interviewing and doing a little bit of journalism with a human being named Cleve Jones, who is a contemporary and mentee of Harvey Milk's. He is one of the people who found Harvey's body and had these really amazing parallels where he talked about the foreshadowing that that event would have with the AIDS crisis to come and all the dead bodies and the people that he would lose personally. That interview will be the cover story for the Pride issue of Sus.
Please send that around.
Asking to restate the date.
Oh, excuse me, this is Commissioner Hemer, just going back to my roundtable discussion of the National Day of Action through the Oregon Coalition against domestic and sexual violence is June 5th, Wednesday.
Thank you. Agatha Ventura, she, her, and I know sometimes it's hard to think about events in your calendar once you've logged off. So if during the month you think of any, feel free to send them to myself, Scott, Linda, anyone, Jackie, Andres, any of us, and we'll be happy to flag them when the meeting comes around. But we have some more time if anyone has any other events to share.
I wanted to add to thank you, Commissioner Vernatico. I look forward to that article and Pride.
And Pride.
I know there's ties that bind me, and I read the Seattle Times, and there's been many arrests and protests just today in the last few days. Proper permit was obtained by a group that was identified as Christian or religious leaning, and met in Cal Anderson Park on Capitol Hill, sacred space for the LGBTQIA community, and had about 15 hours of events. And it resulted in violence and protests. So hopefully our Pride event can be a different experience. And I understand, again, Mayor Pro Tem Perkins, not for you to speak, but one of the reassurances that we saw in our proclamation, reaffirming support for the 2S LGBTQI community, was to ensure as best they could the public safety engagement and support for events like Pride. So I look forward to it.
And showing up in numbers. Agatha Ventura, she, her. Please.
This
Commissioner Scott Jones. I just thought I would mention that as far as events go, today is Andreas's birthday. So I just wanted to wish him a happy birthday.
And we want that.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Vernatico. I second that it is also Andres Portella's birthday.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can we move to proclaim that May 28th?
I think Ian might have something to say about that.
I was gonna see if I could suggest somebody move, and get a motion in a second to sing happy birthday.
Oh,
Okay. Fortunately, I don't have the ability to make.
Any words for the people?
This is Andres Portella, Equity Inclusion Director for the City of Bend, he, him, él. I am wearing a blue shirt. I have cocoa brown skin and a black hair. Thanks, y'all. I don't celebrate my birthday. Kind of just was hoping I could work through it, but great. I appreciate each one of y'all. I appreciate my team as well. They got me a balloon and things on my desk, and also made sure I felt like I was important. So I'm just grateful for y'all. So thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy you're here.
We'd like to get another picture opportunity afterwards.
So, motion passed. Wonderful. Last call for upcoming or past events.
This isn't really an event, and I'm gonna stare at you while I'm talking. This is Megan Perkins, she, her. Just so you are aware, the city of Bend had an emergency meeting, and again, I'm gonna like make sure I'm staying, because I know there's certain things I can and cannot say, but the city of Bend has agreed to join in some litigation to protect the federal grants that that we so desperately need as a community. So there is already, I can say this, yes, because we did say at our last meeting, we've already joined one lawsuit.
We're in.
We're in.
We can
Okay.
talk about that one if we'd like.
Yes.
There's a lot happening in this world.
There's a lot happening in this world.
Yeah.
There are, I mean, I think if you think about the things that we get federal grants for, these are the things that we really need to protect so that we can continue to provide the services that we need to provide to our community. And just wanted to make you aware that there is one, there may be more, but the council has basically given discretion to people like Ian to join into these as they become it is important to do so that we can make sure that the city of Bend is a part of that. So just wanted to keep you all aware. The new normal.
Yeah, and Ian Lighthizer, City Attorney's Office, I can just say briefly, yes, there's a list of around 30 other cities involved in this one case in King County. It's in federal court in Washington. Bend's included, hodgepodge of cities around the country. There's lots of litigation, little bit of an unusual step for Bend, but we in council felt it was important. Probably also worth saying, and this was in the mayor's statement that the mayor read at the council meeting last week. No cost to the city, represented by our office and a group of outside attorneys doing this pro bono, meaning free. So important to do, a lot of work, but it's not representing additional cost to the city.
This is Jackie. Sorry, did I miss? Are we allowed to say what it's about? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Ian Lighthizer again. I mean, I want to be relatively succinct, but it's about the administration is presenting cities and other public entities that have received federal funding or will receive federal funding for various things through various grants, through various federal agencies, what I will call additional grant conditions that Bend and a lot of other cities think are problematic regarding things like cooperation with federal immigration authorities, which may in some cases conflict with state law that limits cooperation, and other conditions regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our position is that we do not do anything that violates federal anti-discrimination law in that or any other area. but it's possible the current administration might decide they disagree.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Jackie again. Sorry, I did remember just past recent events. COCC had our salmon bake, 25th like official running year. And that went well. A really large turnout, a lot of positive feedback from the community. Lots of salmon and fry bread were eaten.
This is Commissioner Vernatico again. For anyone who saw the military helicopter flying over the city, that was for COCC's rededication for their Veteran Center, which is newly opened. I noticed a lot of people in Drake Park when it was flying over, like looking up, kind of concerned. So if you know of anyone, it hasn't appeared on Reddit yet. So yeah, I heard that it was magical. I was not there, but it's just reaffirming COCC's commitment to not only our veteran students, but the veteran population here in Central Oregon, and making sure that they have the resources that they need to not only get an education, but to thrive.
Stapling the forgetting I was there, so thank you for reminding me. It was really cool. If you want a picture, I can send it to you. And thank you for sharing. Any final events before we move on to the fun stuff? Wonderful. Please keep sending them and keep coming with them. I would like to encourage as much participation in the community as we can. Now, we would love to have a discussion around the structure of our meetings, how they're working, what's not working. We had a recent leadership discussion where concerns were raised around the use of Robert's Rules of Order in our meetings. And we'd like to open a conversation about potentially revisiting or revising the structure of how we conduct our meetings. And so there are a couple of things we'd like to cover around Robert's rules, public meeting rules, and subcommittee meetings. And we'd like to review a letter that Linda wrote and encompasses a lot of the conversation that we had around this topic to discuss if we want to proceed with finding a new way to conduct our meetings, or, look to see what works and what doesn't. And I will also ask Andres for support in anything that I am forgetting to mention in this process. Thank you. Linda, would you be so kind as to reading your letter? I think that would be a nice way to start and center us in the conversation.
Thank you. Linda Hemer, she, her, Commissioner Hemer. Just little historical, I'm a student of history. Robert, that's not his first name, Henry Martin Robert is from a long time ago. He was a United States Army engineer during the Civil War. His family was from the South, I believe South Carolina, and the family were abolitionists. They moved north, but being an engineer, he didn't like going to assemblies and seeing their lack of structure. So he came up in 1876 with something he referred to as a pocket manual. Now in its 12th edition, Robert's Rules of Order, I believe, is over 700 pages. They do allow for shorter, more succinct versions of that, usually for bodies of 12 or less. But it occurred to me that the Human Rights and Equity Commission is about looking at and hopefully changing systems that engender inequity or that prevent inclusivity, whether by its original intent or by the way it's processed. So the letter I wrote, and I will read into the record. Though not legally binding, Robert's Rules of Order are intended to facilitate a fair and orderly process for debate and to document decisions. Regardless, the rules can be enforced in a way that privileges those who are more familiar with them or have more experience with parliamentary procedure. Similarly, Robert's rules can and have disproportionately benefited individuals often in direct correlation with socioeconomic, gender, and racial advantages. The rules represent a stale and stiff artifact that emphasizes process and procedure over inclusivity and equity. I humbly submit that HREC propose an alternative decision-making procedure that engages and includes everyone, and that furthers HREC's mission rather than stifles or distracts. With the aid of technology, we can comply with record-keeping requirements and with effective facilitation, conduct productive and efficient meetings. With more nimble, transparent, user-friendly procedures, we can ensure timeliness, consensus, and furtherance of our goals and objectives. We have an opportunity to model through genuine dialogue and inquiry, in parentheses, not motions and seconds, the actual rights, equity, inclusion this commission seeks to engender and achieve. There are alternative frameworks such as open space, appreciative inquiry, consensus, and task process, or an organic hybrid for us to propose. I presume it is not within our power to vote to cease the use of Robert's Rules of Order 12th edition. However, it is within our power to choose alternatives to explore and to ask our city council to permit an alternative. I suggest the formation of a subcommittee or the enlistment of an existing subcommittee to consider this proposal. Thank you.
May I jump in?
Always.
Ian Lighthizer, City Attorney's Office. It is totally within your power not to use Robert's Rules of Order.
See how persuasive.
Yes. So I mean, this is a discussion for you to have, but I want to help frame it. The city council has its own rules that it has adopted for itself. Those rules for the council say, we're going to use Robert's Rules of Order to handle our meetings unless there's something different that we want to do. That's a council thing, those people who are often there. There is nothing in the code that says our advisory bodies have to use Robert's Rules of Order. Back in 2021, the HREC, as composed at the time, worked on some guidelines and procedures for how the HREC was going to govern itself. I can't recall whether those were actually adopted. It was 4 years ago. Those rules said we HREC will use Robert's rules as a guideline for how we do meetings. But even if those were adopted, and I can't remember those were adopted or weren't, or are adopted by HREC, you could always change that. So it is up to you whether you want to use Robert's Rules of Order. There is no legal requirement that you do so. What I will say is, as you're thinking about ways to get to decisions, and we may talk about public meetings law in other contexts tonight, public meetings law, state law says, if you're going to do something as a governing body of a public body, which this group is, you've got to do it by a vote. The vote has to be public, and the individual votes of individual members have to be recorded for purposes of the minutes. How you get there, how you go through the discussion or consensus building or horse trading of ideas or philosophies or whatever model you use to get there, I think is more or less up to you. Robert's rules, and I haven't really seen this group use Robert's rules. I mean, Robert's rules are complex and however many hundreds of pages. You've used a basic structure of motions and seconds to organize discussions. If you want to go about that differently or call it something different, I think that's up to you. I think motions and seconds and then discussion and vote. I think kept pretty simple, which this group has, is a pretty good way to organize discussions. If you want to talk about reasons to do it differently, I think that's up to you. The only place I'm going to come in really strong on all this has to do with the public meetings requirements about votes that are open, that are transparent, where the vote of each individual member is recorded, and using that as the mechanism to actually take a position or make a decision. But how you get there, I think it's up to you. If you can come up with something that is better and preferred to Robert's rules, more power to you. But I haven't seen this group really need to go that deep into the rules or have a situation where somebody who is familiar with the rules uses it sort of to their advantage as sort of, as they're playing parliamentary games and strategizing. That kind of nonsense doesn't really happen much with our advisory bodies, and I haven't seen it happen with this one. So happy to help, but the world's kind of your oyster other than the stuff that is dictated by public meetings law.
This is Commissioner Hemer. Thank you, council. That's great news. And I did not, and by the way, from what I read, I was not implying that anyone on this body or the body itself has taken advantage. Just in broader organizations. I've been reading about this. I know that many, especially nonprofits, have been focusing on ways to build consensus that are more comfortable and inclusive. I remember one of my first meetings that I attended here as a commissioner, a fellow commissioner brought up the impact that the formal structure might limit voices and otherwise make people feel uncomfortable. When we're thinking of all our diverse experiences, to make sure that everyone feels that their voice is equal and valued, rather than worried about whether they're interrupting, if they have to move or second or not speak. And that's the opportunity to model consensus that is inclusive. And that was the motivation. Actually, the motivation was the vote we took to put me in this chair, figuratively and literally, to explore other opportunities to have a more inclusive consensus.
Thank you, Linda. Agatha Ventura, she, her, and to fuse both points together, I think there is a conversation to be had around Robert's rules versus public meeting rules and where we're running into obstacles when it comes to getting work done and getting work moving and getting conversations moving. And so I think part of the conversation was that seeing that process and how people felt after that process, how people felt going up to that process, and sort of trying to finesse how we work with each other up to the meeting, what we're doing during the meeting. Is there a world where there could be a meeting like we normally structure and have our presentations? Is there a world where we have a working meeting for the next one? So what is working, what isn't? Because some of the feedback that we've heard and that we feel is that we're often bound to, okay, 10 minutes quickly here. Okay, thank you so much. Next, okay, and we have to give you feedback right now. Awesome. All right, come back next month and hopefully we'll have some feedback. Oh, they passed that last week. And so we're trying to find a way to catch up to all of that is still within our advisory power, but gives us a little bit more of this intimacy.
This is Commissioner Bernatico. I think I've brought this up before when we were collecting ideas. But just like walking in that door is intimidating. I've been on boards and had to talk in front of people before, and I was incredibly nervous the first time I walked in here. And I think that whatever we do, whatever path we choose, I think it needs to be like multidimensional, not just Robert's Rules of Orders, but ways in which that we can make this space more comfortable for people on the outside. And like also, how does that space look to people who are potential HRAC, members, right? If I base my first opinion on my experience the first time I walked in and how nervous I felt, and if I didn't know to push through, I might have just been like, yeah, this is too much. I can't do this. And I think we might be losing a lot of people who maybe watch the public, the public Zoom or step in to check it out, from actually wanting to like engage, because this is a super intimidating space. And then the rules on top of it just kind of like add that other layer. And I agree, like the nonprofit that I founded, like we have just done away with Robert's Rules of Order, because we believe in its heart that it's colonial in nature and that it doesn't take into account like lots of different privileges. But I think in addition to that, finding ways to make this space more comfortable and less intimidating, especially when new people are here, would be important. And I'd like, yes, I'm saying.
Thanks. This is Jackie. I I was still in listening mode. Yes, Robert's rules. Okay. Yeah, this is something that Jeff Kitchens and I had been talking about at one point as well. And so Jeff, if you're listening, um he was working on some things at one point that there might be some stuff that we had kind of chatted about that we can send on or discuss. I'd have to look back at how far we got. And I think I just kind of wanted to share, as I have made very open to everyone, that this is a very uncomfortable space for me. And I mean, I've been on HREC for over a year now, and I still don't really don't get it. Like the whole, we say Robert's rules, but then I know we're not really fully doing them. And the concept of, I know things have to go through a vote, but I'm also not a person that very easily just like does something. Like I need to know why and what's the importance. And that has never been explained to me, actually, other than like there needs to be a system. And it's like, well, that's kind of like because I said so. And nobody likes that type of answer, right? So I know for me personally, and what I could imagine for some other people, that this type of thing is new or different, is just even from the very beginning in the process of interviewing to be on HREC and any type of onboarding or training, having a really solid, what is it exactly that we're doing and why? Where did this come from? What's the point of it? How does it help keep things going and flowing and in the good way? And let's not call it Robert's rules if that's not even what we're doing. Let's figure that out. So that's where this has come from for me. And there's like plenty of people who I know personally where this is a space of like, I don't like what, like, what are you even doing? Yeah, yeah, we're gonna stop there.
Agatha Ventura, she, her. I want to second all of it. As chair, even, I remember coming in and I still looked on this like, do I vote now? So I think, and also to share, my brother's here today and I was explaining to him, yeah, today we might talk about Robert's rules. And he's like, what is that? Who? And so I think there's that element as if we want to bring community in, is that bringing people in, like you mentioned, like in a way that you feel comfortable, you feel ready to speak your truth so that we can get somewhere. If it, you know, we don't have that invitation, or like you said, set that standard of what's expected. So that's just stapling.
This is Commissioner Kovitz, she, her. I would just ask that whatever we do in consultation with staff. There's not very many city recorders and they have big jobs, and I just want to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable and easy to track and write down.
I second them. As I take notes on this.
This is Jackie. I'm wondering in this moment, because we kind of mentioned the tie-in to Robert's rules and public meeting rules, could we maybe talk more about that too, or how that, because I don't even, public meeting again. They have to be public.
Yeah, I mean, Ian Lighthizer, city attorney's office again. I would say there really isn't much of a tie-in. I mean, my 2 cents on Robert's rules, at least again, it's a 600-700 page document. It's Byzantine. Nobody should ever read it. Most people should never even think about it or know what it is. But there are some principles on the surface that it's designed to help, that I think are intended to help facilitate the kind of meetings I think we all want to see, which include kind of everybody getting a turn and everybody having space, and having a discussion that people can follow, both people on the body and people watching, and kind of track what's going on, and then having a clear understanding, both for the people doing the voting and making decisions and those watching, about what those decisions are. So I think there is a beneficial aspect to them. Yeah, I mean, there are aspects that could be seen as colonial and other, I'd say, residual negative connotations to the rules, but I think there is a way to look at them, at least at a really high level, as just a way to have organized discussion that does create space for people and doesn't create, and I know you weren't suggesting that they've been used by this group to create advantages or disadvantages, but I think they are designed through one lens to facilitate equity and shared space and organization and understanding among the group, if they're looked at that way. And this group really hasn't needed to go deeper to the point where they get complicated and hard to understand and start to be sort of counterproductive. That's my opinion, and that's about Robert's rules, and that's not to convince you that you need to keep relying on motions and seconds. But I think those concerns are completely different to me from the public meeting stuff. I mean, the public meeting stuff has to do with voting, individual votes, and really having transparency into the work that a group like this does. And we can talk about that. I think that's a good discussion. It's separate from how you handle organizing ideas and discussions inside meetings. That's a Robert's rules or something else discussion. I think a discussion about how you move work forward and how you get the most out of this time and your time, that's more of a public meetings discussion. And I think it's a little bit, maybe a little bit different. I'm happy to engage in that too, but I think these are two kind of separate topics.
This is Jackie. I know kind of on that public meeting note then, and like the moving the work forward, like we talked about, it sometimes feels, well, and I think it's just true, that we have like essentially a presentation pretty much every time we meet from some person, department, and with the time that we have and only meeting once a month, it just doesn't seem like that really does much. Like you said, like we get a presentation, then we're supposed to formulate feedback on a thing that it's like, well, it's happening before we even meet next or whatever. And so I think that's one of personally what I have been feeling just in some ways around like how do we create this space to actually dig into something? Because it seems very surface level, and I know we have our subcommittee, groups now going, and so that should help theoretically. But yeah, I just like we do have a lot of like say, and so I want to be able to utilize that in our community. And I don't know how much our say is, I don't know how much goes to the council. I don't know how much it's considered. I don't know. Do we really know? No. I mean, we can't know. But it's like, how can we create, and maybe that's part of the policy subcommittee, but figuring out those ways of let's meet and really dig into something instead of like, okay, we'll create feedback, but then we all still have our lives. And sometimes we don't get around to creating that feedback. And that's really what I thought this space was for, that these roundtable times is to create that feedback on the things happening in the community and the departments that are looking for our input and such.
Agatha Ventura, she, her, 2 quick notes. I would like to remind the online to please raise your hand if you want to chime in. We would love to have you as a part of the conversation. And secondly, something you said earlier also stuck with me, Jackie, around when you first started, you were like, I'm here, but not really sure like where do I go? Where do I start? I mean, obviously you come here, but where do I put my input? Right. And I think my experience was sort of following the structure of the meeting and sort of feeling that same, like, okay, we have limited time to do this. We have a little bit limited time to do that. And I think for me, when it comes to the public meeting rules, it's the structure of the meeting that can halt a lot of the motion. And so I'm wondering and put in space if it's a matter of like looking at our goals, for instance, when we set up our goals a couple of months ago. A lot of that work happened on the department side, and then we sort of all voted on it. But we had talked about it a couple meetings before, but it was hard to sort of retrack where we had spoken about it before because we were also welcoming some new members. And so I wonder if it's, you know, do we have those goals as like our guiding conversations of like what's happening under this umbrella, what's happening under this umbrella, or is it the subcommittees that's like what's happening on this under these umbrellas, and commit more time to that in the meeting like we're doing today with the roundtable. So that's something I would offer to the group, or we could still follow the different parts of the meeting that we need to cover. But like you said, just have more time together to work through some of the issues that we're discussing. And if a presentation happens this week, like you said, our next meeting is in a month. So is our feedback helpful in a month? Is our feedback helpful now? Or should we have that presentation last month so we can talk about it this month? So just thinking about those logistics.
This is Cristina Morales. I mean, for me being new, I'm just like, right, like I'm just going with the flow and but I feel a little out of the place still. But sometimes I feel like a little bit like you, Jackie, right? Like that I'm swallowing things without chewing. Right? Like I didn't have time to process things, and then so I don't know if it would be possible to have information before we come about things that people bring to the commission, so we can understand a little bit or read or have like a little chewing before, and then probably we can come with some questions or things like that. But yeah, I'm definitely, I'm trying to be very cautious because I don't know yet how to move.
That's what we
forward.
want to reduce a little bit.
But I love this more than that.
Right.
It feels more like approachable.
This is Andres, Equity Inclusion Director. I want to reaffirm something you just said. You said this over that, and I think the distinction was sitting at the dais versus city and community. I think we did go through a process of talking about our work plan, and we did use subcommittees to kind of talk about that work plan. Those are focus areas. We can, like, all of that stuff are things we can do and seem really good and give us something to say, hey, we championed something at the end of the year, but what does it look like for us to sit down and really do the work? And I think that's the part we can really play with, whether it's, I think the way that public meetings was brought into this discussion as I was talking with leadership, we were talking about all the steps that go into the production of a meeting. We were talking about the making sure things are posted within 24 hours or 48 hours before the meeting. We were talking about the connections that we have, either from myself connecting with each one of you to make sure that, like, hey, are you coming to the meeting? How are you feeling? Those sort of things. But then additionally, when we set up those subcommittees, the amount of labor that goes into our team for scheduling subcommittees, reaching out to y'all to make sure we're going to get at least one or two or three or folks at those meetings. And we were talking about just the amount of wasted time that is there, opposed to being able to actually doing the work. So what does it look like for us? And I kind of pose this to the leadership team of what does it look like for us to do an on again, off again kind of situation of maybe we do use these meetings to really dig into a parcel of the work plan and say, okay, for the community engagement side, we're just going to focus on what community engagement events are happening within our nonprofits, within our community, or within the equity department, and say, how do we allocate our capital, our resources, whether it's showing up, having folks from our community show up, or even bringing some of that into something that Mayor Pro Tem can share at the dais. Or maybe it's, well, we're thinking about these conversations for welcoming week around things that are equity. That's not the larger sense, but what does it look like on the day to day, and what does it look like for HREC to plug into that specific event or to be a part of those sort of discussions with the community engagement frame of our work plan? I think those are the things that I pitched to leadership of, are we using these meetings as effectively as you want them to.
This is Commissioner Hemer. I really appreciate everyone's input too, and I think we have an opportunity with subcommittees, all of that, education and awareness, policy, to community engagement. If we're engaging in a process or production, I think that was interesting. This is a production in many ways that does not further any of those, and even our own education and awareness. We're not achieving anything, and certainly I'm not speaking for you, Mayor Pro Tem, but to come here and give a summary of what's occurring for other members of city, of this, the urban planning, long PowerPoints, it takes time. We value your time, their time, we value our time. And to listen to it and say, hey, any questions? And we're like, oh my gosh, word and data laden PowerPoint, how 90s. But hopefully, there's an opportunity, for example, that one of the goals of I don't mean to get into old business of policy subcommittee is to come up with an equity lens, equity framework, a checklist. And some of that might be something at the beginning of each meeting or before a presenter comes up to say, these are the three, this is the lens we would like you to deliver the information to us in. That's a framework, but it's a framework through the lens of equity, not through some other process or procedure that has been given to us. So I agree there's an opportunity to conduct it. One of the other things, jumping ahead, we have every public comment. Imagine we are appointed commissioners, but to come in here, as a visitor, as a citizen, a resident, to come and speak about an issue that oftentimes is quite personal. And to face this situation, state your name. As we stand above you, I almost feel like I need a white wig on. A powdered wig. I could see how intimidating it would be. And we don't have that opportunity to hear that voice. So thank you.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Bernardico. I apologize, but I have to leave a little early today.
You will be missed.
Thank you for being here.
What should we volunteer them for now?
And I will also flag that Agatha Ventura, she, her, I will flag, we also do not have to make a decision on what we're gonna do today, but just that we're all in agreement to look into what we could do. So that's what we would vote today. Oh, Commissioner Fisher, please.
Hey, thanks. I just wanted to give my thoughts on this, and I really appreciate the letter. And I am absolutely open to considering other options. One thing I do appreciate about Robert's Rules of Order that is the efficiency, but I wholeheartedly agree that there are lots of disadvantages to it as well. So I haven't had a chance to go explore some of the other options that Linda included in that letter, which I'm excited to explore some of those. And I'm familiar with maybe one of them. But so I would support considering other options, but I also do want to give that piece of efficiency because we are, we only meet once a month and everybody's really busy. And I think the best use of our time is really important for these meetings. So I'm looking forward to looking at this, and maybe we could just circle back after we all explore those, or maybe I'm the only one who hasn't. And then talk about it again, and maybe share our preferred options, or maybe the subcommittee that maybe was mentioned, or have that as a task for one of the subcommittees.
This is Jackie. So my question is, and this will highlight what I think we're really talking about, is this something that we're do we have to make a motion to discuss that we're going to officially change something? This is where I get confused.
Agatha Ventura, she hurt. From my understanding, we're making the motion that we're considering alternative options for our structure.
Is that even something
No,
we have
she's
to?
wrong. Let me
simply-
pass it to Director Portela.
Mhm.
Or,
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Please.
Ian Lighthizer, City Attorney's Office. No, I don't think the group needs to make a motion. If the group, including the chair especially, are looking around the room and seeing head nods or people shrugging their shoulders, and there's a general consensus, yeah, let's explore this.
Awesome.
No, there's no requirement. That somebody make a motion.
right. Unless we
We
really
should
want
explore.
Yeah, we could model something. I mean, there's, just like we have sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. I mean, just people are comfortable just to be able to say, make sure you're heard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, eloquent. And I wrote things down just because I write.
And Ian, again, I will say that, yes, that all makes sense. I think if the group does explore an alternate way of having discussions and reaching decisions and gets to the point at a future meeting where you want to talk about whether the group wants to actually decide or adopt those, then I'll say, yes, you need to vote.
Right.
And that needs to be recorded. But if you want to sort of do things by consensus until you get to that actual decision, totally fine.
Beautiful. There can be cool and uncool. I mean, just groovy. Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, no speaking too. Just so we can.
Wonderful.
This is Commissioner Jones. I'm just sitting here thinking and listening to the discussion and recognizing that I've had some experiences with other kind of groups that tried to build inclusive atmosphere and create community at the same time that don't use anything formal. Things like we have this discussion and there's, I don't know, quick count, 10 of us around the table, and some of us are talking and some of us are just contemplating what's going on. And then towards the end, like just making sure that there's a space. Does anybody else want to share something? Because sometimes even breaking into a conversation can be challenging, right? And some of those other meetings that I'm thinking of that I get the honor to participate in, you kind of build that in. So I guess my encouraging words here is that we can create this and we can make it powerful and we can make it inclusive so that people feel comfortable and we can make it meaningful and at the same time kind of build community. So, we're not just Commissioner Jones, Human Rights and Equity Commission, but we're the Human Rights and Equity Commission. And we're all kind of like connected in a lot of different ways. And I think, today is the first part of that discussion and who knows where it's going to end up, but I really appreciate the fact that we have allocated some time and some energy into figuring this out because I know that I want to come in here and have something meaningful to help create positive impact. And I hear that from some of my other commissioners too, that's like, what are we doing here? Like, I want this to be something special. So I guess let's just keep working on it. And I'm encouraged by all of you and the thoughtfulness of some of the conversations. So thank you.
This is Jen Kovitz. I just want to second a couple of things that people have said. One, I love this round table format and being down here on the floor with you all. I did not know when I was given the honor to join this commission that we sat at the dais. Somehow that just missed, and I kind of freaked out when I walked in. So yeah, I feel you. Yeah. And I have awe for those of you who sit up there all the time because it's a big deal. I also really love this idea of alternating with work sessions or figuring out how we build a cadence of work sessions in. I I so appreciate the point about staff coming and bringing together a full presentation, and I never want there to be a perception that coming here, and I'm not saying that this is what it is, but I never want there to be a perception that coming here is checking a box, that you present and check a box, and then, then it gets moved down the line of process. At the same time, I want to be respectful of staff's time and give feedback in a meaningful and time-sensitive way. And I know that requires both us to be organized and do our work to in advance. I like that metaphor. But also asking staff to bring things at an earlier time, which may or may not be possible. But I just am enthusiastic about the idea of work sessions that we're doing all together.
Item 7, Tara, she, her. I also want to encourage in the spirit also of, not always having something to say in the moment. If something comes up in post, please feel free to email it to us and I'm happy to share it with the group if that's what you'd like. Because it is about finding more ways in, more accessible ways in for our community. And that starts with us and being able to connect with one another. Thank you, Scott, for making that point. Any other thoughts? Any final thoughts before we move on? Wonderful. Thank you everyone for engaging in this discussion. I think we are all on the same page and looking forward to AG's rules. Okay, just kidding. Anything that we'd want to cover on subcommittee meetings before I move into the next?
Well, it was a part of the whole discussion.
Perfect.
We lightly touched, and this Andres Portela, Equity Inclusion Director, we lightly touched on subcommittee meetings, and this month was a hurdle to get everyone wrangled for those meetings. And we talked about why we keep things under a certain amount of people in certain spaces, and publicly noticing and not publicly noticing meetings, and then coming back to the space. I think if the suggestion is for this group us to figure out a cadence between when we do meetings that are presentations from from our staff, and flipping and doing a working meeting where we're talking about things that ATREC is building together and using that time in between. I think that could be a good rhythm and cadence. We didn't get to that point, but I think that's a conversation we can have at a later date. I will say the subcommittee meetings, I think I talked about this when we finally settled on a day for some of the subcommittees of like, hey, we meet consistently this time. We missed it this month. That's perfectly fine. The extra length it takes to get us back into a space. We all have busy schedules. So I think just figuring out some consistency either for a specific day or in a way that can be done in which we bring in the right group of folks at the right time. Try not to step in it.
This is Jackie. I have one question on that. So one of the things that I heard was just logistics, scheduling, even just sending out emails to do the scheduling. Is that something that can just be like divvied out? Do you have to do all that emailing, Andres?
So if we're emailing people under a certain number, my understanding is that if we're not coming to any consensus during the subcommittee meetings, we can meet with those groups.
Yeah,
So we already have established who's in what
right.
group. So I'm assuming that it's okay that we email that group.
Like I, as the being part of a subcommittee, could take lead on organizing the time that the subcommittee meets, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Ian Lighthizer, City Attorney's Office again. Yeah, just really simply, a subcommittee that is just gathering information is not considered a body subject to the public meetings law. The term I've used before, and I hate using it because it's long, is governing body of a public body. But that's what the law says. You all are a governing body of a public body because your authority is to make recommendations to the city council. If there is a subcommittee of this group, 3 of you, 5 of you, doesn't matter. And that subcommittee is going to be making a recommendation to the group as a whole. That subcommittee is also a governing body of a public body, meaning all of the labor of a public meeting and all the requirements apply. If that subcommittee, 3 of you, 5 of you, whatever, is only gathering information for the group as a whole, under the law, it's not subject to the public meetings law. You don't have to notice the meetings. You can meet, I'd say, less formally, and you're not subject to all the rigmarole. Does that make sense? So I think the really important thing is understanding what the subcommittee is doing. And every subcommittee, not just to this group, this is for everybody, every advisory body in Oregon, every city, every county, the state. If there are subcommittees should be clear on what it's doing. And if the subcommittee is doing stuff to then make a recommendation to the mothership, the big group, then it's formal and subject to the public meetings laws. If the subcommittee is not supposed to do that, that's not what they're asked to do. That's not their purpose. They're just gathering information. Then they're not subject to the public meetings laws. So it depends on what the subcommittee is doing. But if you're just gathering information, hearing stuff, you can do the less formal thing.
And the public meetings law is that the
It's all of
Congress has to send an email to organize the meeting?
it's all of this. The meetings have to be publicly noticed in advance. They have to be accessible. We have to have remote access. They have to be in certain locations that are accessible to the public. And the idea is because the public should be able to see the work you do as a group. The public has a right to know that what and how its public bodies, its governing bodies are doing business.
This is Jackie. I think I'm not stating something. I'm literally just asking about sending the email to
Right,
organize the
right.
meeting.
But I think, I
That's-
think to me it involved what the subcommittee is doing. If the subcommittee is just gathering information,
Okay,
it can be super informal. It can be super informal.
This is Andres Portela, Equity Inclusion Director. I think this is the point of the conversation of the leadership team meeting that we had, where I was like, when we talked about public meetings, when we talked about Robert's rules, I was trying to explain the distinction between Robert's rules, how we facilitate the meeting. The issue that we were having is public
Is
meetings.
this.
It's this.
Yeah.
I think the rub that we were having was, how do we move a body of work if every moment we have to spend, okay, we have to stay under this amount. If we stay under this amount, we can't have discussions that lead to formalized decisions. And we were saying that like it's truly inefficient. And we were talking about how it's a part of a dominant culture, dominant culture thing that we were trying to toe the line and figure out, what does it look like to do something different? And I think that's a design issue that government has. But I also think it's a design opportunity for HREC, because I think there's options. The option one is we stay the course and we figure out how to make it work. I do think that there's another option where we think about our role. And that's our role to counsel. And we've talked in adjacency to this, and I've talked about it with the leadership team, but this is the first time I'm saying it largely to all of HREC, of like, if we are an advisory body to council, which is the original intent of HREC, then we are subject to these same rules. I think there is a world in which we think about ways to decolonize public meetings, but then we take away the authority. And that's the root of the problem. The authority is what, at this level, we have the authority to provide that level of guidance to our counselors and say, hey, here's something that came up with the Human Rights and Equity Commission. Here's our recommendation. You can choose to take it or leave it. I think I know I just outlined 3 different real things, but like, I think that's kind of where we're at. There's this rub and tension around like the production of what an HREC meeting is. But then there's the reality of like, we're working on behalf of folks who could really give a damn about production. They could really care about like, what is their seat at the table and what's the lens we're applying to the projects that staff are presenting to us. And I think there's a healthy way to blend that. I think structure prevents a lot of that.
Clearly.
So to get to your point about emails, I'm like, I try to take on a lot of labor just so it's not something that's arduous for y'all or even have to be in the ethos for y'all to think about. I think if we keep it under quorum, right now we have 14 members. We just have to keep it under 6 between each meetings. I think we're in the good spot. So like, hey, if someone's raising their hand and being like, hey, I'm a part of this subcommittee, I'll shoot out an email. Great. But as soon as we get over that certain level, as soon as we start to coalition build and all those different things, that's when we got to start publicly noticing.
And you guys book the room. And that's why I think where it's not just the email, it's all the admin that comes along with it. Agatha Ventureshi here, if I understand correct.
Ian, did I step in it?
No, you didn't
Great.
step in it. But yeah, just back to what the subcommittee is doing. And yeah, Jackie, I know you asked about email. I get it. I think I do. Yes, if the subcommittee, again, doesn't matter if it's less than a quorum of this group or not, if they're gathering information, you can meet informally, you can farm out some of the tasks, it doesn't have to be staff driven. You can meet and gather information without all the production of this, for sure. Yeah.
Agatha Ventureshi here. So where subcommittees are finding information and options, not making decisions for those options, right?
I think Andres Portela, we talked about this when we were creating the subcommittees, was that we can go in those space, we can do the research, we can talk about how we lay things out. We just have to come back to this space, formally vote on it, and then the subcommittees go back and do the work. Which again makes it a little bit harder to move at the pace in which government moves, to move not at that pace.
But I like that Agatha Ventureshi, we brought it all the way right back to sort of what we were experiencing. So I think we're all on the same page to consider how we move forward. So thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for more. Any final thoughts before we move on? Great. Moving into public comment. I will pass it over to city staff.
Is there anybody in the gallery that has a comment? There's no one online either.
Great.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Next, we're moving into our vote for 2025. And I will pass it over to Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Larson. I work for the equity department and I go by she, her. I'm a Hispanic lady that has salt and pepper hair, more pepper than salt. I would like to start off, we're gonna make 3 different acknowledgements and votes for a summer break, November meetings, and December meetings. We're gonna do a roll call vote, and if I could get people online, which are 3 commissioners, and the commissioners in council chamber to raise their hands so I can count and take a vote on how many, then we will make a choice that way. Okay. So for summer break, who all raise your hand if you would like to take a summer break in June?
This is Jackie. I'm raising my hand just because I won't be here. So I mean,
Oh,
I don't care if we break, but I won't be here at that meeting because of a work.
Who would like it to take a break in June? 3 people?
There's Cameron Fisher online.
Okay. Lower your hands.
I actually have a quick question about that.
Okay.
Is this as opposed to July or August or just in general?
Months to choose from.
What?
You have 3 different months to choose from.
Okay, got it.
And who would like to take a break in July? 2 people. 2 people. Okay. And
Don't see anybody online.
2 people. And who would like to take a break in August?
2, 3.
Oh, there's 1.
Eli online.
3 people. Okay, it looks like August will be the day. Is that okay with everybody? Even the ones obviously that didn't choose. Okay. It will be August, that we will take a break in,
Perfect.
and then let's do a roll call vote for the November meeting. There's gonna be 3 to choose from. Wednesday, November 12th, in the boardroom. Wednesday, November 19th,
Printed it.
Zoom only. And Thursday, not Wednesday, Thursday, November 20th, in the boardroom. These are rooms that are available. With the stipulation, they'll be able to fit 3 to 15 people and plus the community. So these are the only rooms that are available, and also, they accommodate people, you know, that have any accessibility needs. So how many people, raise your hand who wants to have a meeting Wednesday, November 12th, in the boardroom?
Sorry, can we hold on a sec? I just need more time.
It's okay, Jen.
Okay,
There
so
should
we're
be-
just picking
Oh.
one of these
Correct.
as an alternative to the normal meeting time.
Correct.
Okay,
No, yeah, well, yeah, because of Thanksgiving.
okay.
So I'm sorry, I didn't get how many hands. Somebody said, wait a minute.
I think we're just waiting for people to check their schedules.
That's what. I'm not playing Wordle.
Are we ready to, okay, raise your hand for Wednesday, November, boardroom, November 12th.
Well,
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5,
no one online?
no one online. And then we have Wednesday, November 19th. This will be a Zoom only meeting. It will not be in, at the city hall at all. Okay, we have 0 online, 0 in gallery or
One in-
chambers.
One in chambers.
Oh, 1, oh, yeah. About that. And then, Thursday, November 20th, in the boardroom. Raise your hand.
Dang.
Oh, that's you.
One online, Eli.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, that's 1. Wednesday, November 12th, in the boardroom is the highest, will be the meeting for that month, for November. And then the December meeting. We have Wednesday, December 10th, in the boardroom. Thursday, December 18th, in the boardroom. Wednesday, December 31st, in council chambers, and that's your regular last Wednesday. HREC meeting date.
I also want to note that this is usually when we get everyone together and we share food. It's not usually, I don't expect y'all to come with food. We always buy the food, but we come together, we break bread together.
Here.
Yeah, so I'm like, choose this one wisely, please.
So, I'll take, if you have a, well, and also it's a party day, that's the reason why I thought, you know what I mean, people getting ready and gussied up to go places, so that's the reason why I thought maybe there's a different part. So give you a minute to take a look at the calendars.
Gussied up.
Bend. No one got these.
I could break out at any time.
Is that bad?
No, it's not. So-
No, I write down at any time.
Oh, okay.
That's the.
Okay, I thought maybe, I'm older now, so. Okay, so we have Wednesday, December 10th, in the boardroom with a possible dinner. And then Thursday, December 18th, in the boardroom, possible dinner. Wednesday, December 31st, council chambers, regular meeting date, possible dinner. So, how many for December 10th? 1 in the gallery, 1 online. So that's 2. Thursday, December 18th, boardroom. Raise your hand. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4.
5. One online.
And yeah, 4 in chambers and 1 online. Okay, and then Wednesday, December 31st, council chambers. See, I told you these people wanted to gussy up. Human chambers.
Yeah.
So it looks like your meeting will be Thursday, December 18th in the boardroom.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes,
I
was gonna say with a gavel.
Chair, before we move forward.
Yes,
This is
please.
Andres Portela, Equity Inclusion Director. I wanted to share this just because I wanted to make sure that we have all this front of mind. There are a few staff presentations and community presentations that are wanted to be had. We had the housing department kind of slated for today, but I asked, I mean, they're here. I'm appreciative that they showed up and are present and just wanted to be a part of the discussion and kind of see how the space flows. We have the economic development department that wanted to talk to us about Invest Bend, but also talk about the work we've been able to do on supplier diversity. We had the environment and climate group that wanted to talk about the climate action plan, but also some grants that they want to get to communities that are normally outside of the grant process and how do they reach them. And then we have the Oregon Advocacy Commission reached out to our space. We have the Commission on Black Affairs, Commission on API Affairs, Hispanic Affairs, Women's Affairs, all wanting to come into this space and just do just a quick overview of what these different spaces does. And then we have Mickey Dirting, who's on staff, a part of the U.S. Civil Rights Committee member, who was leading this charge and just wants to give a brief overview of what they do and all the different things. These are all just future presentations. Based on our discussion tonight, we can either choose which ones we want to get a presentation for, but also think about what we have time for. And what we want to move together as a group, and then consider how we overlay some of these discussions with some of those discussions as well. So I'm just going to put that as a part of our ethos. I'll follow up via email with all of these. This is more of I'll work with our leadership team to figure out when this all shakes out.
Thank you. Moving into old business, I think is a beautiful transition to look at our work plan subcommittee reports, starting with policy advocacy. Today, we are looking at adopting a housing letter, which Commissioner Kovitz has drafted to support for HB 3644. We will review and discuss this letter, and I will have you read it shortly, so prepare. Please note that we are making a recommendation for HREC to advise council to send this letter. But it's not a normal practice for us as an advisory body, but it aligns with the city's values. And so we will be asking our council liaison to share the letter in the June 4th meeting. And so I will flag that if we do not get to the housing presentation today, I think there's I mean, we won't, but I think it's fitting for it to happen in our next meeting because we are having this conversation around housing. Most meetings. So Jen, please.
This is Commissioner Jen Kovitz. This letter is a direct result of Mayor Pro Tem's presentation to us last time, I think, where we learned about the risk to shelter dollars at cities like Bend. And I was just struck by why we would, something I hear cities talk a lot about are stranded assets, which simply means that you've invested in something and it cannot be used. So you imagine a road to nowhere, or in this case, the city has invested time and staff and resources into expanding our shelters, and what happens if they are not funded to continue to operate. So right after I wrote this and sent it to Andres, the point in time count, the pit count came out, which Mayor Pro Tem mentioned. I feel I would ask this, one of the lenses you bring to this as you listen is it worth our mentioning the pit count specifically because, as Mayor Pro Tem said, the shelter difference for the city of Bend has remained steady, and that is a result of this expanded capacity. It feels like that might be missing here. And then there's some data in here that I would have to ask that the staff provide because I didn't want to Google it. Okay. So this is addressed to the Joint Committee on Ways and Means. Dear Co-Chair Lieber, Co-Chair Sanchez, and members of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, which for those listening is a legislative committee at the Oregon State Legislature that consists of both senators and representatives. We, the undersigned commissioners of the City of Bend's Human Rights and Equity Commission, strongly support the state continuing to fund shelter, rehousing, and homeless intervention services through HB 3644's proposed, this is a long number, $217,918,652 general fund biennial allocation. Thanks to Governor Kotek's leadership, Oregon cities and counties have been able to invest in building much-needed shelters for our most vulnerable populations. Yet without sustained and adequate funding, we risk stranding these valuable assets and failing to care for our unhoused and underhoused neighbors. Over the last biennium and following the governor's declared state of emergency, the City of Bend used state dollars to increase our number of shelter beds from X to X. That's data we need from the city, including XX additional low barrier beds and XX beds for children and families. Yet the 2025 annual operating cost for Bend's shelters is insert dollar amount here, which is an X% increase from before we expanded our shelter capacity. We commend the City of Bend for stepping up to meet the state's ask to create more shelter, rehousing, and homeless intervention services. We also know that many other cities across the state now find themselves in a similar situation. Our cities are at risk of being unable to maintain their newly expanded shelter and intervention programs. Why would the state diminish its commitment to homelessness interventions when it has so recently invested millions of dollars to expand these programs? When we expand services, we must have a plan to sustain these new offerings over time. As a commission, we urge your committee to support funding HB 3644 at the proposed 217, et cetera, million general fund biennial allocation dollars. The City of Bend, Deschutes County, and the state of Oregon remain in a homeless state of emergency per Governor Kotek's declaration. Now is not the time to reduce our capacity to serve our unhoused and underhoused neighbors. Sincerely, the names and signatures of all commissioners.
Thank you. So if we have any discussion to have, please let me know your comments, but we will need a motion to share the draft letter of support for HB 3644 with the council to enter on behalf of HREC for the City of Bend.
May I make a motion that I would add mention of the pick count shelter, and then we would share it? Okay, I make a motion to add the pick count details as I outlined to this letter, and then send an updated draft to Director Portella for sharing with council.
We have a hand up online.
Oh,
But
sorry.
there's a motion on the table. We just need a second.
Commissioner Cameron?
Hey, I just had a quick question. Is there a reason that we're also not submitting testimony on our own as a commission? Submitting this letter on behalf of the commission as opposed to sending to council, then they submit it?
I can speak to that. This is Ian Lighthizer, City Attorney's Office. Yeah, I mean, there is, and that it's really that the code says that all of the city's boards, committees, and commissions, HREC and others, authority is limited to making recommendations to the council. And then there's a bunch of language on what, but to me, that means that an ideal scenario would be HREC would be talking about a letter advocating to council, effectively saying, council, please continue advocating for this, which council is. So there isn't authority in the code for an advisory body to sort of go outside of that channel to council. So that's
Got it. That helps. Thank you. I didn't know that. But it doesn't, we can, as individuals, we could also submit our input as well.
Yes, and
separately.
Back to discussion earlier, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
If council submits this, can council submit it saying that it's from HREC? How is that?
Yeah,
So
Ian
that we're
Lighthizer again. I
claiming
mean,
it as our.
I think that's up to council. I mean, in an ideal scenario, HREC would be advocating to council. HREC could vote to forward this letter on to council, encouraging council to advocate for this important priority. Council can then advocate to the state legislature, and in theory, say attached, we're taking up this call from one of our commissions, see attached letter from HREC, but we as the council are doing the advocacy to the state legislature, but this is supporting it. Yeah, there's a way to kind of fold it in together.
Sorry, this is
Well-
Commissioner Kovitz. Would it be easier if I rewrote it from the perspective of the council? I maybe misunderstood the assignment.
Yeah, Ian Lighthouse again. I mean, I can't say it would be easier. I think it's more consistent with our format for a group like this to be advocating, making a recommendation to the council, and then for council to sort of carry that to the next level. So I think I took a quick look at the letter. I can't remember how it's written, if it's written to the legislature. One's being handed to me.
It's
Yeah,
written to,
right.
this is Jen, it's written to the committee. It's
Yeah.
written as a letter of advocacy
Yeah.
submitted as written testimony to the state legislature.
I think it would be at least more consistent with the code, and I'm trying not to say better, but yeah, better if it were sort of readdressed to council, saying a lot of the narrative content could be the same, but a letter to council saying, we as HREC ask you to do this. That's more consistent with the way the code is written.
But not wrong.
You're really pushing me on this. Because pushing me in a good way. Yeah, if you want a really straight answer, sending a letter to the state legislature is not within the authority of any of our city advisory bodies. Under the code.
But council could
Right, to your
Yes.
hold
point.
that in.
Yeah.
I think sending a letter to council that says pretty much all the same things in a lot of the same way.
Equity Commission.
Okay.
Yes.
Just for my, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Cameron?
Oh, thanks. I think let's stick with the code, and also there's a good chance of several of these city councilors have already submitted testimony. But I think just it means something that this commission addresses the council of this as a priority for us, and that we support them in advocacy.
Okay, this is Jen Kovitz again. I will just share to my peers on this commission that when you look at the testimony of who's submitted so far, it's overwhelmingly negative. It's overwhelmingly against. There are cities coming forward and putting their voice
Yes.
in, but there is no other commission like this coming forward and saying it. So I would be extremely grateful to the the city council if the ask is that we enter it as part of the records, supporting it. I just to Cameron's point, it is concerning how little comment in support of this bill there is right now. That's my feeling.
All the more so to send this to the council. So thank you. I really appreciate you initiating that.
And would very much encourage those of you who are willing to submit individual testimony as well. As individuals.
You got it.
This is Jen. So meeting is next Wednesday, right? Okay, so I will make these changes quickly and resend to Andreas.
We can still do a motion and just
Oh,
say,
sorry.
in the introduction of a motion, to say I'd like to introduce a motion that we accept this letter with the revised changes to come to forward this to city council for city council to approve this and to send it to.
Speak up, please.
My apologies. But yes,
Yeah,
that could
okay.
be our motion.
I propose a motion that we make the amended, the recommended edits to this letter that we've all discussed, and that we as a body send this letter on to council for inclusion in their advocacy and decision making at their meeting next Wednesday.
I object. This is Commissioner Hemer. I'm uncomfortable moving, agreeing to a motion saying we'll make edits and send. I mean, I'm all for this process. If I missed an opportunity to provide some suggested edits, not proofreading, but just, can we share those now for subsequent edits? I mean,
So the edits will this Andres Portela, the edits will largely be to change the framing from ATREC as being the advocator to council being the advocator.
and then adding the
Advocate.
pit.
The pit.
and
Correct.
adding additional data.
To find individuals to
And-
fill in all the X's,
Correct.
yes.
All right.
So it will be a string of events that happen
Okay.
between now and next Wednesday to get this in front of council.
Yeah.
But if we don't feel comfortable with that, what I can do is this. We can make the adjustments as quickly as we possibly can. Between myself and Jen, and then we can get it out to ATREC. I will send it to you and I will ask for a response as immediately as possible, directly to me and not to each other. And then I will respond and say, we have voted on this, we are going to move it forward and try to get it back, try to get it to council. Usually their packets are due last week, but this is going to be during council's update, so it's perfectly fine if we're up to the hour.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Hemer again. I appreciate the time is of the essence. I had two stylistic suggested changes that I could sit on or just for a drafting perspective. May I share those or?
I'm
just
curious.
not
Yeah,
today?
yeah.
I'm curious. It's killing me. Last sentence of second paragraph. Unless you're expecting the answer, I suggest we reframe it from a rhetorical to making it a declaration that the state should not diminish its commitment rather than asking why. Rhetorical question opens them to say, because I'm the mom. And then finally, in the last paragraph, I'm not familiar with the declaration. Per Governor Kotek's declaration, if there is a way to give the proper title or a date of that actual declaration, that would be
May I rely on
Sure.
staff? Okay, thank you.
a lot for just a little. I apologize.
Apologies needed.
Thank you.
Does Jen's motion,
There's still a motion
I'll
on
second.
there's a motion on the floor.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. We have
with all of
first-
the
who was that?
sentiments.
Carly.
All those in favor?
Was there a first? Okay.
There was a first, there was a second. Second was Linda.
I didn't hear.
Apologies.
No, first
No.
was me, second was Carly.
Carly,
Yeah,
I'm so
first
sorry.
was Jen, second was Carly. Yeah. It's been a long one.
All those in favor, say aye. Or
Aye.
like that. Any opposed? Thumbs down. No? All in favor. Motion passed for the letter to be amended, sent over to Andres for approval, and then sent over to council to then be presented at the June 4th meeting.
Yes,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
So
And
We're gonna amend it.
all those in favors would also be signatories? Is that, or am I presuming too much?
Well, technically, when you just voted, you
Yeah,
became a
that-
signatory,
Wanted to.
but it is
Okay, I
for
wanted to
council
clarify.
to sign to give to.
Right, but for us to sign to give to council.
Yes, and council can decide to forward it.
It's later.
love it. Any other updates from the policy and policy advocacy subcommittee? Putting in the space that we did not have the meeting this month, so I completely understand if we need to reconnect on updates next meeting.
There wasn't, my apologies, sorry for just jumping in.
No.
There is, Commissioner Lowenstern had a letter that was shared probably a few hours before the meeting. About standing in solidarity with our houseless neighbors. And I don't know if y'all had enough time to read it. I apologize that it came in so late. I mean, this is my fault for not getting it to y'all a little bit sooner. Sorry to Commissioner for not getting to you sooner. But that letter is still with us. I think we can do this via email. Just it's to express solidarity with our houseless community and some of the things that have happened on federal land. So we can review that via email and I'll make sure that's in the record in the minutes. we can so choose to move this letter forward to council via email. So you'll get an email with the letter and it says, is this something we want to adopt as a body? Then we move to council.
Well, we will do that. Any updates from the community engagement or education and awareness subcommittees before we move forward? Ashamed.
Okay, no, it's okay, no, it's okay, it's okay, you did it.
We will have updates one day, once we restructure. And then I'll pass it over to Andres for equity department updates.
All right, I'm gonna be brief. It's 6:30 right now and I'm trying to get out of here. So thank you so much for going through the meeting and then having this wonderful discussion. I think when I first got here, this is all I ever wanted, was for us to be at a table and for us to have meaningful discussion that doesn't put the enemy on each other, but then also look at the system we're trying to change. So I'm just super grateful for that. I wanted to, thanks, what a wonderful gift. The first thing I want to talk about is the Kovac walk and roll. I want to give a special shout out to my team for all the work that they did on this, but I also want to give a shout out to Cascades East Transit, Ben Parks and Recreation, and the community for showing up and having a discussion around how accessible or inaccessible our community is. The walk and roll took place from the Hawthorne station, went up to the park, I think it's Juniper Park, and then wrapped back down over to Dogwood. And we just use C-Click Fix. I mean, not C-Click Fix. I don't know why my mind always goes to that. The Bend Works app to call out some of the things like buckled sidewalks, things that the city could fix, but also talk about the park design. And we got some amazing instruction there. We ended the tour with why is his name escaping me?
Ari Mendez.
Councilor Mendez, standing on a table and talking about some of the accessibility and pedestrian safety work that is taking place at the council level. So I'm just super grateful for the folks that were involved in that. We were invited. Hopefully next time we show up. But it was great that we had representation from there, and then our team was a part of. I also want to thank ATREC members who were represented and shared as we reaffirmed our commitment to our 2S LGBTQ community members. During our last meeting, this was a subject of discussion and we wordsmithed the heck out of things. Don't worry, the draft that we saw as a body is not the draft that we ended with. We had directly impacted community members at the table building and designing this. And I'd like to give a special shout out to our team who spent the time to really connect both in some design conversations, but also to bring folks back together and say, is this something that is worth moving forward? And I'm grateful that council went ahead and proved that in our May 21st meeting. I also want to mention that as a group, some of us went to the NASU powwow this last week. That was a wonderful event, but then also to just be in community with each other. Some community events that are coming up are LCA is doing their 25th year celebration at their office on Friday, May 30th from 3 to 6 p.m. My team will be there. We also have some counselors who will be present and some city staff who will be present. We also have Ecochella Community Justice event at the same time, goes a little bit longer for that extra hour at 7 p.m. at Drake Park. Additionally, we have Epic Game Night, June 1st from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the East Bend Library. That's the Asian Pacific and Pacific Islander Collective. We have the Juneteenth celebration that's going to happen at Dogwood. I will share out more information about the date and time. I couldn't find it in my emails, but I know it's happening. We have Pride, June 7th at Drake Park. We have the Treaty Days powwow and parade on June 28th and the 29th. I just wanted to make sure that it's a part of our ethos. We have some city staff going. We have some counselors going as well. This was an invitation as a part of our joint meetings. They invited staff and they invited council to come. ATREC, we'd love to move with y'all. I have seats in my vehicle if we need to move together. So that's our upcoming events. That was what we've been working on for the last month. If there are any questions, I'll pause here. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something, some other good news.
Great.
But are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
I don't know, if any of you served on HREC with Linda Long, yeah, yeah. So Linda Long was, a really, integral part of the Human Rights and Equity Commission for, I think a year or two, a couple of years. And was experiencing homelessness and lived at China Hat. And really used that experience of living there to really talk about all the things that she would like to see with our houseless community, and was doing a series of jobs that were not up to, we're not doing what she really wanted to be doing. She was working at Starbucks. She was just trying to make ends meet. Well, she received one of 16 scholarships to become a community health worker with certification from the Oregon Health Authority. And she did 90 hours of work and 6 weeks of training and is now an official community health worker. And it's just a really excellent next step for someone that has already given so much to our community. So I just wanted to share that. The good news.
Thank you. It's great news.
Thank you. And thank you everyone again for the candid, wonderful conversation. I look forward to many more. Is there any other HREC business before we adjourn? Great, with no further business, the Human Rights and Equity Commission's May 28, 2025 hybrid meeting is adjourned at 6:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks, everyone.